What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So the discussion around RAM prices surging continues on into 2026, and now a report is starting to go around as to how some of these console manufacturers are going to tackle next generation, and maybe how they could have to delay the consoles. And how far? Well, that's all stuff we'll go over here today. Also, we are going to be talking about another port that seems to have leaked out a bit early for the Switch 2, and man, all I can say is Capcom is really on a roll right now with this new hybrid system. And we have an acquisition that's been announced. This, though, is covering the platform with GOG and leaving people kind of uncertain as to what the future looks like there, but all of that and more. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button. Helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And of course, members for the channel do get Newswave early. If you would like to learn more about that, click the join button or link in the description down below. And we're going to start today with the Xbox Series consoles and how a very weird quirk has been discovered. And while I think this has been mentioned before, we have our latest example of the system being bogged down by just the system itself. Like, you can see this. This is over on Pure Xboxing. Over the weekend, a pro Halo player known as Brett Leonard took to social media to highlight that what they think is a major design flaw in Xbox consoles that's actually hurting performance in games. Now, to put it short, quick version here, they went through, realized they had a ton of messages, a bunch of people on their friends list, over 1,000 apparently, and they decided to start clearing all of that out. And what happened, the system started, as they say running at supersonic speed compared to before, and not just the UI. Apparently it also translated over into Halo, like the game they're playing. It seemed like bullets were firing, everything was more responsive to their controls as they were pressing buttons or pulling triggers in there. And again, I feel like this has been discussed before, that it's almost like that Microsoft did like this Windows update back during the Xbox One generation, and since then I've seen this kind of pop up where the system can almost be weighed down by stuff like messages or your friends list. And here we just see someone like, oh, I'll try clearing this out, and boom, everything just runs much better. And that feels like the most Xbox thing imaginable. But I wanted to bring this up to see if anyone else out there has had a similar experience, or I guess if you have a bunch of messages right now that are just piled up, try clearing them out and seeing if the Xbox all of a sudden wakes up a bit and can move around better. Also, it looks like Rainbow Six Siege is back up and running. Ubisoft shared this over on their social media account, saying our live tests are now complete and we are opening the game to all players. Please note that you may experience a queue when connecting as our services ramp up. They do also mention that the rollback is complete, so players who did not log in between December 27th and December 29th should see no changes to their inventory. But if you were gifted maybe a really rare skin, or I guess if you just had billions of currency dropped onto your account, that should all be gone, and it should be reverted back to a snapshot that was taken, I guess, days and days ago. So, again, a very odd situation there for Rainbow Six Siege to get to the point where Ubisoft had to shut things down. And for the player base that has been consistent, like it's not like no one's playing this game. People do consistently play it. It was probably pretty frustrating for it to be offline for a few days just because some people decided to hack into the system and have some fun for about 48 hours. And I know it's at Ubisoft's expense, and people just like, a lot of people just don't like Ubisoft, but it's unfortunate because there are a lot of people who do enjoy playing the game. So good to see that it's back up and running, and I guess we'll see if anything else happens to it in the future here, because it seems like a prime target now for hackers out there. Oh, and we had some good news for sales around Fantasy Life I, this over on their social media account, where it says Fantasy Life I has surpassed 1.5 million copies in worldwide cumulative sales. In gratitude, they're releasing new illustrations. There you go. You can see at the bottom here, 1.5 million sold. And again, I have the game. I haven't had a chance to play much of it, but I do see people who really got a kick out of this title. So it's good to see that it has, I'd say, surpassed expectations, or at least met them with what they were thinking would happen. I mean, typically when these companies announce these kinds of sales, do entire illustrations, things are going well there. So good news, people who enjoy Fantasy Life I, because something tells me they'll have plans for more of that in the future. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with next generation consoles and how exactly all of this is going to play out, because for the most part right now, with everything happening with AI and these data centers that are being stood up, no one really knows what's going to happen 12 months into the future this time. It's just, I know the contracts are going through 2026, but after that, who really knows what the future holds at this time, because we could see things really go crazy with AI and all of it works out, or it could crash and it's just disastrous across the board. Well, right now, the thing we do know is the RAM prices, we see NAND, flash, solid state, all this stuff is being affected in terms of the price point for consumers, but then also behind the scenes for a lot of companies who need to procure a ton of it for, I don't know, a big next generation console launch like a PlayStation 6 or whatever Microsoft wants to call their next Xbox. Well, according to Insider Gaming, could have to wait a bit longer to find out what they have planned. This we can see over their website, and where they say RAM modules have increased in price by several 100% in the past few months due to the demand for AI, and with the pursuit of AI seemingly not going away anytime soon, RAM availability could continue to be a bottleneck, or at the very least, the RAM shortage could mean that prices will continue to hike. From what Insider Gaming understands, the situation has led to console manufacturers to debate whether the next generation of consoles should be delayed from their intended 2027 to 28 release window, with the hope that RAM manufacturers will be able to build out their infrastructure to produce more RAM, thereby allowing prices to drop. So the idea being eventually more factories, more manufacturers will open up and then be able to alleviate the current squeeze that's happening just by way of more supply. But Asus was one that came up recently, and the thought process was that they would also start producing RAM outright, and it seemed like that wasn't the case because they don't necessarily want to take the risk on something that would be an incredible amount of money. I mean, the cost to actually open new factory lines and be able to set all this up, large buildings, it's quite substantial, and it would take about 2 years or so. And so that's the thing. In 2 years, so at the end of 2027, do we think we'll still be in the same place that we are right now? Probably not, but we also don't know which way this thing is going to go. Like, is it going to swing in the direction of, oh, we actually do need a lot more RAM? Or is it going to swing in the direction of, wow, that did not work out, and now these manufacturers need to find a whole bunch of other customers that they had in the first place, but they left for AI, and hey guys, Crucial is back on the market. I don't know if that's necessarily going to fly with a lot of people out there after what Micron did with something like Crucial, but that's the whole thing right now. Someone would have to take the chance on the side of RAM manufacturers to continue opening up more and more factories, and I just don't know if they're willing to do that right this second. I kind of feel like many people out there are just waiting to see how this shakes out, especially through 2026, and that's one of the reasons I'm thinking we got at least another 12 months in front of us of this stuff happening where prices will continue to climb until we do at least see some sort of relief, whether it's from less necessity for AI with data centers, or things just going south for AI and these data centers being mostly unnecessary, or it's just they have an overabundance because AI didn't work out, or AI does work out, and it's not for every single company that's currently in the AI arms race. Maybe there's just two, maybe one even, that gets to the finish line and the rest just kind of peter out. But what that means for the PlayStation 6 and the Xbox Series XXX is that maybe they won't come out in 2027 and 2028, which apparently Xbox, Microsoft, that was their thought process, was to have the system out by the end of 27. And I mean, we're about to go into 2026, so if they were going to launch it holiday 26, they'd probably want to start thinking about announcing it soon. I mean, consider the fact that we heard about the Xbox Series X at the Game Awards, technically the year prior before it came out, but almost 12 months before release. It would be almost too soon for right now for them to announce and then run to release, although I guess they could. It's just not a great environment currently because look at what the Xbox Series is priced at right now, $650 for their flagship Xbox Series X with a disk drive. How much is that next-gen system going to cost? Because in my mind, it's probably more than $1,000. Now, the thing with Microsoft that's so interesting is they're in a position where they do rely less on hardware and now more and more on their OS, to where that seems to be their primary focus and what's at the center of everything. So they could still effectively launch next generation in 27 on the software side, to where it is across all devices and you don't have to think about it's Xbox Play Anywhere across the board, and they can play into their new OS that they're still kind of working to where Windows and gaming with consoles is all merged together. And then a year or two later, they come up with their big Xbox system, the successor for the Xbox Series X. I think it's really PlayStation that's in kind of the more awkward position, because they do focus heavily on their console, their hardware, and they sell a lot of the PlayStation 5. It's still rolling. It's going to be over 100 million consoles sold in its lifetime. But how do they contend with a PS6 that very well could be $700 to $800? That's tough. Just the more expensive these things get, the less you're going to sell, just in terms of quantity. And that becomes a problem for Sony, and that would become a problem for Nintendo, because they do rely on a large user base to then sell games to, take royalties, or the entire thing with first-party releases. But you know what's interesting? When this comes up, I've seen it more and more now, the top comment is, that's fine. Hey, let this generation ride. Hey, 2030, let's aim for that. There's not much, I don't say excitement, because I'm sure there's still excitement mixed in with curiosity as to what Microsoft and Sony would do for the next generation systems. It doesn't seem as urgent as it has in the past. The 360 and the PS3, for example, that was getting kind of old. We were looking at this like, these systems are struggling right now. I would like to see what they have planned for, at that time, the Xbox One and the PS4. We got that kind of a jump. It was noticeable. It was awesome. And then less of a jump for the PS4 to the PS5. But still, people were like, oh, okay, what do they have for the PS5? Just isn't really a thing right now. And we've completed the 5th year. We're now in the 6th year. This is when you think people would start to have that in the back of their mind of, okay, what's next? What's the next big system? Just really isn't there. People are pretty content right now, and I get it. We have systems that are nice and quick, snappy with the SSD, provided you don't have 1,000 people on your friends list apparently. But like, we have fast systems right now across the board for the most part, or ones that are quote unquote good enough, even if you cut down for something like the Switch 2 with some of these games where they're lower frame rate. People are looking at them like, hey, these look pretty good. So it's just this weird moment in time right now, and I think it would make sense for Sony and Microsoft to sit back a bit and wait, see how things turn out, and then maybe plan for, 1, maybe 2-year delay, looking at 2029 and 2030 for the PS6, and then the Xbox Series Quadruple X. Next up, let's talk about a port for the Switch 2 that seems to have leaked out by way of, you guessed it, data mining. And this is coming from Capcom, who has been, again, on a roll right now with the Switch 2. They are putting a bunch of games on there early on, even games that are there day and date, with something like Resident Evil 9 and Pragmata. This one, though, kind of difficult to get it out day and date since the game is already out, but certainly turning a lot of heads, because it's going to be interesting to see how this one runs. But we can see this. This is actually over on Nintendo Everything. It says, fans have combed through the game's latest update and found something interesting. In one line of code, there's a new edition with the following: Via Store native NS2 upgrade edition. Aside from Nintendo Switch 2, not else would make sense here. This coming from a recent update for Monster Hunter Wilds. Now, there is a lot to this. There's a Reddit post that pulled together all of the different data mining that's happened here, all the different findings for Monster Hunter Wilds. Some of that includes them showing DLSS being tied together with this NS2 code. Local multiplayer doesn't seem to be split screen, by the way. I think this would be more or less the game share, or the feature of, hey, if there are Switch 2s around you, you guys can just link up through wireless, like local wireless, not have to go through the internet necessarily. So that does sound like them describing maybe a game share feature. And that would actually be pretty cool if you could do game share with Monster Hunter Wilds in the same room, and just fire up a Switch 2 and go on an adventure with your friends there. That'd be kind of fun. And then different rendering for NPCs, which it appears that there'll be maybe draw distance will be different, maybe animations, depending on how far away they are, they'll be kind of cut in half. Again, all this is sort of leaning into the idea of, okay, they're going to cut down what they can here and there to get the game to fit on the Switch 2 and run well enough, okay? Now, there's also mention of a possible Monster Hunter Rise upgrade. That does seem like some heavy speculation just based on some of the code that's been found. But you talk about upgrade, well, they're probably not upgrading a version of Monster Hunter Wilds for the Switch 2, because one doesn't exist on the Switch 1. But Monster Hunter Rise, yeah, that could use a Switch 2 upgrade path there, and just again, resolution, frame rate, whatever they want to do. I think that'd be kind of fun. But Monster Hunter Wilds, that's, I want to see this. But I just want to see how it's going to run, because it's been a struggle, obviously on PC, but also on PlayStation 5. It's not the smoothest running game that I experienced when I was playing it. So this could be another, I don't want to say impossible port to the Switch 2. You could say unlikely port. But again, Capcom has been there in force right now for the Switch 2, especially with RE Engine now really finding a home on this system. And look at Monster Hunter Wilds, RE Engine. So it all is kind of lining up there for Capcom with this system, and it's good to see they jumped in both feet right away. Hey, we're going for it with the Switch 2, and it's something I think will pay off for them, especially with Monster Hunter Wilds. I mean, in Japan with the Switch 2 rolling along. The PS5, not as strong as Nintendo as we see in the weekly sales charts. So if you see Monster Hunter Wilds pop up, just know we're probably going to see a fairly large number, I'd say, on the Famitsu sales charts, relatively speaking, with the number of Switch 2 systems that have sold there in that region. But a big port to keep an eye out here for Capcom. Again, these are just strings that are found through data mining, so it could be something maybe that's set up for the first big Nintendo Direct of 2026, and I figure that might fall somewhere in February, so we'll keep an eye out for that. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about GOG, or Good Old Games, as it is part of the news yesterday because it's been acquired, and people were unsure exactly how to feel about this news right away, but I do think it's good news. But let's take a look. This over on the GOG website saying today, I'm going to say Michal Kaczynski? Let me know how close I was on that one. One of the co-founders of CD Projekt and the co-founder of GOG has acquired GOG from CD Projekt. This new chapter is about doubling down on that vision. We want to do more to preserve the classics of the past, celebrate standout games of today, and help shape the classics of tomorrow, including new games with real retro spirit. DRM Free is more central to GOG than ever. Your library stays yours to enjoy. Same access, same offline installers, same sense of ownership. Your data stays with GOG, and GOG Galaxy remains optional. GOG will remain independent in its operations. We will continue building a platform that's ethical, non-predatory, and made to last, while helping indie developers reach the world. We're also committed to giving the community a stronger voice with new initiatives planned for 2026. Now, it is interesting that one of the co-founders of CD Projekt and then the co-founder of GOG decided they just wanted to fully own GOG and buy it from CD Projekt, other than maybe the idea that, yeah, they're bought in, they're 100% all in on GOG as a platform for what it stands for with DRM free, and yes, them leaning into a lot of the classic titles that I do enjoy seeing pop up from time to time on PC, because they do a lot of work to make them operate, we'll say, and function on Windows 11 and Windows 10, and add controller support and newer driver support and resolution for current monitors. There's a lot of work to go into touch these games up so that they don't crash immediately, and I do like seeing, oh, here's some Resident Evil games showing up. Breath of Fire 4, there it is, Fear. Like, there's some really cool stuff there. But the thing with that is CD Projekt it's a publicly traded company. So you do have shareholders that are checking in on this kind of stuff. Like, okay, what's going on there with GOG? Now, it seems like with it being purchased away from CD Projekt, it would then be a private company. And I think that would work in its favor overall to make decisions like, hey, we are going to bring in some of these classic games. Don't necessarily mean we're going to make billions of dollars from it, but it does work into what this platform is all about. And I think that's actually a good thing going forward. So as they mentioned, more initiatives planned for 2026, and I'm hoping a bunch of really cool ideas when it comes to their retro platform for GOG. So to me, seems like good news, but I guess we'll find out here in the coming years. And before we go to the comment of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, and that is Game of the Year Madness Day 11, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 versus Ninja Gaiden Ragebound. And you can see Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 did win 62% to 38%. Ragebound, very, very good 2D action platforming game. Really enjoyed it. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 it was just going to be too much in this case. And while I didn't really get into it, it wasn't a game for me. People really did get a kick out of it. It was already up there for Game of the Year nods as a nominee for the Game Awards. So this matchup, this result does make sense. But Ninja Gaiden Ragebound, not a bad showing there at 38%. If you have not tried it, I definitely recommend that one. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Davids, who says, I played the dig site, the Earth City E3 demo. That's on the Halo on PC, the Master Chief Collection E3 demo. And it's amazing that after all this time, I can finally play that level just as I saw it over 20 years back. And right now, a lot of people online, like the modding scene, they're really looking into these files, checking them out, seeing what they can run. And there are some interesting things in there. There's an entire AI NPC test room where they just see how these different characters will interact and stuff. That was kind of cool. I'm almost wondering, though, if the community is going to take a lot of these files and try to rebuild and maybe even release that E3 demo from way back in the day to where it can run well enough on the original Xbox even, and then we legitimately can play through it. Because right now you see that's kind of spread out, the files are, it's sort of piecemeal together with this recent leak. So there's going to be some work done there, and I have a feeling because of how legendary this demo was and still is, that will happen. So that's something I keep an eye out here, just see if we eventually get to that point, because then I will absolutely be checking it out and we'll do an entire video on it. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. If you missed yesterday's Newswave, I'll leave it up here in a card. Or maybe you got a Switch 2 over the holidays and you wanted to hear all the things you should know about your brand new system. I did a video on that and I'll leave that right below. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.